Before even trying to conceive, I wish that I knew these 3 things, because I feel it would have helped so much. It would have saved so much time, so much stress, and maybe we would have gotten there sooner. But I want to make sure that I'm able to give you some tips, because I realized that when I was on my own journey trying to learn, and I was watching YouTube videos and TikTok videos and Instagram videos, there wasn't many people talking about these things. And I really hope that maybe my video can reach someone, that it can help. We can talk more about these things, because it can get pretty lonely, it can get pretty stressful, pretty frustrating, and there's nothing worse than feeling alone. So the first thing that I wish before trying to conceive was knowing how long everything was going to take and getting those tests done and out of the way before even trying to conceive. Now, I know there are rules to this. There are rules in certain countries, and in my situation in Canada, certain provinces, things like that, where they don't allow you to enter a fertility clinic if you haven't been trying for 6 months or to a year. Now, where I'm from, Canada, Ontario, the rule is if you're under 35 and you've been trying for a year and you have not conceived, you're able to get into a fertility clinic. And if you've been trying for 6 months and you are over the age of 35, then you are able to get into a fertility clinic. Now, seeing as how when I first started, I was about 33, entering 34. My husband was about 40, entering 41. So we were pretty up there. And we had already been trying for about 6 to 8 months before even reaching out to a fertility clinic. And I kind of wish that we had done it sooner, because I didn't realize how long everything was going to take. First off, it takes a very long time to get into a fertility clinic. I know this might sound controversial? Oh, interesting. It's a word I don't know how to say, and my first language is English. Controversial? Holy cow. Anyways, I know it just, again, some places may not allow it, but keep in mind that if you are approaching that 1 year to start contacting some doctors, maybe you can get some blood tests, maybe you can book your appointment. It totally depends on the rules of the clinic. Now, for us, like I said, it took about 3 to 4 months to get into the clinic. So you want to keep that in mind first and foremost. Secondly, like I said, try and get those tests as soon as possible. Again, depending on what the rules are in your area, but I feel like there's more that we can do during that process while we wait. For example, you could possibly get your blood tested to make sure all your hormones are in check, and just getting the ball rolling. You know what I mean? So I do wish that we knew how long everything was going to take, and that how long the process was going to be. So when we entered the fertility clinic, it was the end of July, and we just finished the very last test that we had to do, and we are in March. It took a very, very long time, and things can happen within the clinic as well. Keep that in mind. For example, when I did my first blood test, they somehow lost the results, and I didn't get my first blood test results till a month after, when I did my second blood test results. And the order of things that we went in was, first I got my blood tested. I did a ultrasound to make sure my uterus was looking good and there was, no fibroids or any issues or concerns going on there. I then did something called a SHG, which looks at your fallopians and fallopian tubes to make sure that they're not blocked. And that is different than a HSG. So this is called a sonohistogram. And it wasn't as painful as the other tests that I hear a lot of women complaining about. And I may do another video on this because it was quite the experience. And then from there, we did And then from there, it was just a waiting game with my husband, because he also had to do a sperm analysis when we first went to the clinic. And this is something I wish I knew. When they do the sperm on the check, they also check for DNA defragmentation. And that took almost 3 months to get the results back. And by then, the results could be totally different because it takes about 3 months for the sperm to regenerate and change. And within that time period, we did so many changes to like our diet, our lifestyle, our stress, everything like that. And now he has to do another sperm test so we can even progress to the next step. Just keep that in mind. And because it can be really frustrating when you're going through everything to then be like, oh, I have to wait 2 or 3 months for this test. I have to wait a month for this test. I have to wait a week for this test. So just keep that in mind. And I think when our expectations are realistic with everything, we're less stressful. All right, I did make a mistake. I said it was a rule here in Canada, Ontario, that you have to be trying for a year if you're under 35 and 6 months if you're over 35 just to get into a fertility clinic. And I have to fix what I just said. So it's not necessarily a rule, but it is a recommendation. And most fertility clinics have their own guidelines and what they recommend. At the end of the day, like I was saying, just try to start maybe calling fertility clinics in your area just to see if they do have a rule or a recommendation. But if it is a recommendation, just try and push for it. That's what we did, and I believe that's how we got in a little bit earlier than the typical couple. But really try to understand the rules in your area, because then you will be able to fight for what you need. One of the reasons why I am recommending trying to get the test done as soon as possible, as soon as you're able to get them done in your area, is because I have seen so many situations where couples have been trying to conceive for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 7 years I've seen. And then they go to the fertility clinic and they're told, oh, your fallopian tubes are blocked, or oh, your man's sperm there's nothing there, or you have endometriosis, or whatever it may be. So the more answers that you have before trying to conceive, or even at that 6-month mark, is going to be so key. And I do understand that many people are limited in what they're able to access depending on their country, their resources, the money, insurance, benefits, healthcare, all that stuff. Very empathetic to the people that are unable to have the resources to be able to go to the doctor and get, say, a simple blood test or an ultrasound or anything like that. And my heart goes out to these couples because they've been trying so hard and for so long to maybe down the road eventually be told that had they come in sooner, they could have maybe conceived a lot earlier. We are all trying to do our best with what we have and the means that we have. And I hope that every couple is able to have those resources to be able to get to a doctor, to get to a clinic, to be able to do these tests ahead of time. Number 2, start educating yourself around 6 months to a year out. And what I mean about this is when you kind of have a time frame of when you want to try to conceive. When you are educated, you're able to take that knowledge with you to the doctors, to the fertility clinic. You're able to defend yourself if you need to. For example, I did not get a blood test for my husband until months after I did mine. For some reason, I don't understand. We were already months into our journey and they hadn't even done a blood test on my husband, which I felt really, really odd. And just in case your husband has issues with his hormones, thank goodness mine didn't. But if your husband has issues with their hormones, you're kind of able to say, wait a minute, it's been months and months. My husband hasn't gotten a blood panel to check his hormones. Is there something we can do? And you're able to fight for it. So if you are educating yourself and you are learning these things and seeing other people's experiences, you are just going to have everything you need in your back pocket to prepare yourself and to know what to do. For example, I didn't even know when my periods were coming. I didn't know how long my cycles were. I didn't even know what ovulation meant. I didn't even know what LH strips meant. I didn't even know there was a difference between LH strips and ovulation strips. They're called the same, but again, I'm going to go into further detail about that because I think it confuses a lot of women. And so there just needs to be an understanding when it comes time to, okay, we're ready. I'm educated. I know what we need to do. Let's go for it. So just dive deep into everything and educate yourself on what the process is. Understand how long everything takes. Start reaching out to fertility clinics if you have to, and start to just talk to other people and understanding their experiences, because you can learn a lot by just going on social media, looking up a certain topic and reading everyone's comments and experiences, because it will either stress you out or it'll put you at ease, but at least you are able to have some realistic expectations. And like I said, when you go to the doctors or the fertility clinic, you are educated and ready to push back if you have to. Another thing I recommend, and this is to add to part 2, is to start tracking your periods and your cycle, because a lot of women will learn that they're having abnormally long cycles or short cycles, or maybe none at all, which can be indicators of PCOS, endometriosis. I'm not a doctor. This is just from my experience and learning and seeing the patterns that other women have. So what I highly recommend is downloading an app. I use the Flow app. I'm not sponsored. I use the Flow app, and I started tracking my periods about, I would say, 3 months out, but I wish it was way longer, because then the app would have way more information that I could go by. Because if you look at the trends of when your cycle is, it's going to give you a lot of feedback that you can then take to the doctor or the fertility clinic, and you can get on these issues, if you have any, ahead of time before when you are trying to conceive. Number 3, I wish before trying to conceive that someone told me, expect a year. Just expect a year going into it. When you have that expectation that it's going to happen quick, and especially growing up, going to school and the teacher's scaring you that it can happen just like that. And for some it can, but for others, as we're seeing, fertility is becoming quite an issue nowadays. It doesn't happen as easy as a lot of people think it may. And so if you just have the expectation that it can happen maybe after a year, or just have that expectation of 1 year, I feel that so much of our stress will just go down. Because after, I would say about 8 months, that's when I started to kind of really stress and panic and whatnot. But the more people I spoke to, the more they said, it took us a year, it took us a year and a half, and we don't have any issues. We don't have any fertility issues. So we see everyone, on social media, or maybe our friends and family, it's always those people that are not trying. It happens for them, and then it really hurts, like, oh, we're trying so hard and this is all we want, and why does it happen to them when they're not trying? My guess is because they're not stressed about it. So if you're not stressed about it, if you just go into it knowing it can take a year or more, I feel that stress will go down and it will happen sooner. I wish that I spoke to more people in general, whether it be my family, my friends. There are people in my family that struggled for over a year. We're about to do IVF, and then all of a sudden, they kind of gave up, and then all of a sudden they fell pregnant. Like I said, I feel like my stress levels would have gone down so much more. So my advice to you is just expect a year, enjoy that year, have fun with it. And, even month after month, if you're seeing a negative, you're learning every month. And that's why I said, learn all these things before trying to conceive, because what happened to me was month after month, I was learning as I was going. I'm like, shit, I think I messed up. Maybe I messed up on the timing, or maybe I didn't read the ovulation test properly, or, whatever it may be. So if you're educated before going into it, then that year is gonna be a lot less stressful, because you're not learning on the go and maybe making the mistakes that a lot of us make. So if you're equipped with everything, that year is going to be fun. It's not going to be as stressful as a lot of us make it out to be. And honestly, I just wish that I didn't stress about, the whole timing and this and that. And The best advice that I have is, as soon as you're done your period, just start baby dancing. Just start baby dancing right away as soon as you're done, and just start baby dancing every other day up until you're past your fertile window. And I hope these tips helped you. If you find it helpful, please leave a comment in the comments below. I'm going to do a series on this because I have so many things that I wish I knew before trying to conceive. So this is part 1. Stay tuned to my part 2. Until next time, peace.